What is going on, everybody? It is your boy Mince. Back at it with another video. And today I'm going to be reviewing the newest MCU movie, that's being The Thunderbolts. Or should I say, The Thunderbolts! I was trying to do a Russian accent, and I couldn't do it at the end. Anyways, but before we get into the actual beginning of the review of this film, don't forget to subscribe if you're new to the channel, because number one, it's absolutely free. Number two, also maybe help with the YouTube algorithm, recommended it to more people, and maybe they could join that chat. And do feel free to comment your thoughts on The Thunderbolts down below. With that being said, guys, let's get right into it. And before we get right into it, let's give a quick plot synopsis of the movie, shall we? So, transition and choose them, yeah. Ensnared in a death trap, an unconventional team of anti-heroes, Yelena Belova, Bucky Barnes, Red Guardian, Ghost, Taskmaster, and John Walker embarks on a dangerous mission that forces them to confront the darkest corners of their pasts. So going into the Thunderbolts, I went in pretty, skeptical at first because they already had done this movie. Just in the comic book genre in general, this movie has been done so many times. You have an odd ensemble of characters, and they eventually find a family in one another. So when they first announced this, I was going, okay, I'll check it out, I guess. And I, of course, knew about the team, the Thunderbolts, in the Marvel Comics. So I was going, okay, maybe it could be good. Then those first two trailers dropped, and I thought they were both fantastic and made me super excited for the movie. And this actually ended up making my top 5 most anticipated movies of the year, if you can believe it. So went in, saw it yesterday, and let's just get into the actual review itself, shall we? So starting off with the good, we always start off with the good here for our movie reviews, and it is the team dynamic that you have in here. So originally, when they announced the full cast for this one, I was very, how do I say this? I was a little down with all the people that they announced. But however, with all the characters that you have in here, like, as previously mentioned, Yelena, Red Guardian, US Agent, Bucky, Ghost, and Taskmaster, and all of them have very similar fighting styles, which I think certainly adds to their dynamic a little tiny bit, but as well was because all of them basically are going through almost the exact same thing with each other. Pretty much the majority of them anyways. They're all struggling, so I think that added for a very strong team dynamic that actually made this one stand out a little bit more, like, compared to, like, the Suicide Squad movies and, and Guardians of the Galaxy, so it made it stand out a little bit more. I'm not saying overall as a whole I prefer this movie to those, but I'm saying, overall, the dynamic of the team definitely, overall, as a whole, gravitated towards me a little bit more. And if you're talking about all the characters, you got to talk about the performances in here. And by far, the standout, without any shadow of a doubt, is Florence Pugh as Yelena Belova, which we already saw her as Yelena in Black Widow a few years back, which she was great in that, and she was a scene stealer every single time she was on screen in that movie, and then she briefly appeared again in Hawkeye, which she had a pretty decent role there. And in a sense, this is kind of her own movie, because she is very much the leader of the Thunderbolts in here, and I think Florence Pugh does great, and I think she's definitely in at least, like, the top 3 best working actresses today. And this continues to solidify it in here with her actually doing some dramatic acting, doing some comedic acting, and doing some serious acting in this movie, and doing great at all 3 of those things in here. Also, I think all the supporting cast is great. You have Wyatt Russell in here as US Agent, which I did like the character of John Walker in Captain America, well, not Captain America, sorry. In Falcon and Winter Soldier, I did like him overall as a character, and I thought he was interesting, so I'm glad they brought him back for this project, and finally paid off the ending of Falcon and Winter Soldier with teasing him as U.S. agent, and I think he was the second standout of the movie, and I think Wyatt Russell is having a very promising career up in here. David Harbour still does great as Red Guardian, and forgive me, I don't know the actress's name for Ghost, but she does good in here as well, and Sebastian Stan as Bucky in here, I think, as well, does good. And if you're talking about the team in the movie, you might as well talk about, like, the heart of the team, and that is the new addition of Bob. Now, I'm not going to say who Bob is, just in case if people get mad if I spoiled who it was or whatever, which we'll talk more in depth with the spoiler review tomorrow. But I thought he was a very fun new addition in here. I thought as well, Lewis Pullman did a great job as him as well by making him a very likable character that you can't help but be charmed by, and as well be intrigued by. So thoroughly enjoyed him as a new addition to the MCU, as I said before. Another thing to talk about in here is the action. I think the action is genuinely great. It's very much similar to, like, spy movie action sequences, so similar. I'm not saying it's as great as the spy movies, now, okay? But it's kind of similar to Mission Impossible and the Bourne movies. With the action. And I'm not saying, as I said before, I'm not saying it's as great as that, but I think genuinely there's some really great action in here. So there's that. Particularly with the one scene we get in the trailers with them fighting at the beginning. I thought that scene was genuinely awesome. Also, the comedy. The comedy, usually I'm very critical of the MCU with its comedy in their movies because it can be either very hit or miss with this film, with most of their films, where sometimes it'll get me a lot, like Guardians of the Galaxy, for example, and the Spider-Man movies. Those certainly made me laugh. Or then they'll try to make me laugh with movies such as, like, even though the first Ant-Man was funny, the later movies didn't make me laugh as much. So, but in here, I think it certainly did that, and it also has a very dark sense of humor that I actually appreciated and liked in here, so also thoroughly enjoyed that. Next thing to talk about is probably the second best thing about this movie, and it's commentary on mental health. So all these characters basically have, well, particularly with Yelena in this, she has dealt with some, like, depression, and pretty much everyone in this team actually has dealt with depression, and I think it added a very, very heartfelt and really cute team dynamic between everyone in this film, and how they eventually wrap it up. I'm not going to get into spoilers here, but I'll talk about it in my spoiler review tomorrow, as I said before. But how they eventually wrap it up, I thought was just beautifully, beautifully done. Yeah, it got me a little teary-eyed at the end, I won't lie. I almost started crying. So, there's that. As for the final positive in here, I have what it sets up for the future. So, there is two mid-credit scene and a post-credit scene in this film. Mid-credit scene is just a joke, but the post-credit scene is a big deal, and I liked it, even though I do admit I thought I was not gonna get spoiled about the end credit scene because I heard how all crazy the movie was, but I got spoiled about it in the bathroom, which I'll talk more in depth tomorrow, but yeah, that annoyed the crap out of me. But anyways, now we move on to the mixed aspects of the film, so the parts of the movie that I'm 50-50 on how I enjoyed them, and I only have two. Number one is the use of Bucky. The use of, so in here, Bucky basically is kind of, out of all the Thunderbolts in this film, is the one that isn't in the fight pit in the beginning of this film, and instead he's in Congress, which I don't like that role for Bucky, but you eventually do get him later on in the movie, though. Which, funny enough, actually brings me to who he works for And that is the character of Valentina Allegra de Fontaine. I'm pretty sure that's how you pronounce it. And she's played by Julia Louis-Dreyfus, which you've seen her, of course, in many things before. And she's also appeared in the MCU as this character a couple times, like at the end of Black Widow and in Falcon and Winter Soldier as well. So you've seen her pop up a couple of times in here. But however, even though she is played by a great actress in Julia Louis-Dreyfus, which, of course, most people know her as the character from Seinfeld, and she's really good in that. And she's good in here, too, but the character overall as a whole, they show a moment of her backstory in this that I thought was interesting, but also at the same exact time, she just comes across as a rip-off Amanda Waller for me. Which I know is comparing to the DCEU, but still, like, it just came across to that as me. It came across to me as that. I cannot speak. But you get it, you get it. And now, unfortunately, we move on to the bad, which I only have one. And that is Taskmaster's development in this film. And don't get me wrong, from Black Widow, I actually did not like what they did with Taskmaster. I thought the reveal was lame, and in here, they do really nothing to change anything about her to make me like her. She just feels kind of there the whole entire film. Other than that, I loved this movie, honestly. It might be recency biased, talking, it might be recency biased. I'll keep that in mind, but it depends on the rewatch, which I might see this movie again soon. But this might as well be, I said this in my Letterboxd review and my short out theater reaction, this might be my favorite MCU movie we've gotten since after Endgame, which I know is crazy to say since we've had movies come out like Deadpool, Wolverine, Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, and Spider-Man No Way Home. But personally, I just thoroughly enjoyed this film, and it actually made its way into my top 5 favorite movies of the year thus far. It's currently sitting in at number 4. But before we get into actual ending of the video itself, let's bring out the toxic meter. And I'm going to give this a not toxic an A. And I thoroughly loved this movie. And I hope I can't wait to see these characters back in Avengers Doomsday. But other than that, that is just my thoughts on the Thunderbolts. Be sure to let me know your thoughts down below. But with that being said, guys, I'll see y'all next one, everybody. Peace.